The Navy landed the 2nd Chemical Mortar Battalion in Pusan in October 1950. The combat zone was 800 miles north, close to the Chinese border. The battalion could have relied on the Army and Navy to get them into combat, but Colonel V.H. Bell decided to use his own battalion's transport to make the 800-mile trip in just over a week. That gained an extra month of combat time. So the night of November 25th, 1950, the battalion was supporting the 9th U.S. Infantry Regiment near Kojang-do on the ChongChon River. The 9th was scheduled to mount a major assault the next day, but this was the night of the Chinese Communist Forces intervention. Hundreds of thousands of Chinese came out of hiding, penetrated the lines in the darkness, and attacked essentially all positions from all sides simultaneously. To this day, the Battle of the ChongChon River is regarded as the worst defeat inflicted on the United States Army in all of its history. This map shows the red arrows of the Chinese infiltrating and attacking the American positions. The mortar on the map is the 2nd Platoon of C Company, commanded by Master Sergeant Hugh D. Whitaker. The map also shows the path by which Whitaker led his men to safety through the Chinese forces, for which he is commemorated in a bronze plaque in the battalion conference room. The 2nd Chemical Mortar Battalion fired missions as long as they were called, even though the gun crews were being shot by small arms in the gun positions. Finally, abandoning their guns where necessary, the battalion retreated with the remaining elements of the 9th Infantry toward the line of the 23rd Infantry, which was reasonably intact. When the battalion assembled the next day, it was less than half strength. The next morning, the battalion was attached to the 27th British Commonwealth Brigade and assigned to rear guard. This was rear guard of the entire 8th Army, which was in retreat towards southern Korea. For 2 weeks, the battalion and the British Commonwealth Brigade were the only 2 units in contact with the enemy. Sometimes there was 30 miles to the closest Allied unit. They were the last Allied units to cross the Han River Bridge before it was blown. They retreated for nearly 500 miles until the Chinese outran their supply lines and couldn't pursue effectively anymore. The British and the Red Dragons worked so well together that after the war, the British Commonwealth Brigade gave to the battalion a set of ceremonial drums similar to the ones that they use. Those drums are now in the battalion conference room at headquarters at Fort Hood. The battalion took up defensive positions near Chongduan-ni, south of Wonju, and held their own defensive sector unsupported by any Allied units. They stayed there through the coldest winter on record until late January the Allied counteroffensive began. Now let's listen to the Battle of the ChongChon River as expressed through the memories of 3 veterans who were actually there.
Hey, Sergeant Holzman, how you been? Haven't seen you in a long time.
I haven't seen you in feels like years, but it's odd because it feels like Korea was just yesterday.
Yeah, reminiscing on those days is all at my age is all I think about at this point.
Oh, it looks like Lieutenant Andy Barr finally showed up.
What's up? How you doing, sir?
Sir, Colonel Bell was just regaling you with his stories from the Korean War.
Korean time? Oh, yes, those were some, like, hardship times right there.
Yeah.
I remember we had to move my platoon 4 times a day, and then we just finally settled down in this schoolhouse by the river, and we would think it was a great location, and then on the other side was a 300-foot cliff, and little did we know, Captain Morton calls on the radio saying, "Put your men on alert." I go out and start looking at my men, you know, and come to find out a couple of them, they're already wounded. So, how about you, sir? Do you have any other good experiences?
I remember recruiting Captain Warren. Back when I actually got in command of the 2nd Chem Mortar Battalion, I remember hand selecting a lot of my lieutenants and having them recruit other soldiers. And then also recruiting Master Sergeant Whitaker. He was a real good NCO that I wanted to help lead my battalion.
Talk about Master Sergeant Whitaker. I remember that guy. I remember how he led his platoon into safety. He was able to get groups of people to safety. And then last thing that I knew about him was that he never came back. Once he tried to bring some people, he never made it back. Did you get a chance to work with Whitaker?
I need to work with Master Sergeant Whitaker, but still the guilt weighs heavy on me. He actually took the platoon sergeant spot I held before I was promoted to the S2 and sent to the rear to be with HQ. If I hadn't received that promotion and he hadn't taken my spot, it would have been me in his place the night he was killed. So I can only thank him for his bravery.
Yeah, I remember when we first got there, the Big Army wanted to move us to the front lines in about 5 weeks. But I said, no, we need to get there faster. So within a week, myself and my platoon sergeants, my platoon leaders, including Master Sergeant Whitaker, we moved up to the front lines within a week. And as a matter of fact, the 2nd Chem Battalion, the actual headquarters building is named after Master Sergeant Whitaker in honor of him.
Well, they weren't all good memories. I remember being 500 miles north near the Chinese border when the Chinese government finally decided to enter the fray. Things started to shift when the Chinese were bearing down on us.
Our first mission during the Yalu River, a week after that, we got pushed back pretty hard.
I won't lie, I didn't envy the men in the forward detachment. For once in my life, I didn't feel so bad about sitting back at HQ. We just kept receiving radio call after radio call from each company, Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie, about how they were taking casualties and being pushed back. The calls became more and more frantic, and also more and more intermittent. Eventually, we stopped hearing from Charlie Company at all.
Talking about wounded, I remember, when the Chinese were running over at the schoolhouse or CP, and they were transporting the wounded to safety, and we had pushed a couple people in the jeeps to the south. Hopefully they will reach a UN aid station, but we never really found out because we never took names. But yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, those were tough times, Lieutenant Parr. Sir, if I recall, by this point, our forces have been depleted from about 70% to just below 50. Is that correct?
No, it was actually we actually arrived with 70%. We actually lost more than half of our unit during that time. We were actually attached to the 9th Regiment and 2nd ID. I remember one of the attacks the Chinese was actually doing was almost overtook us.
Talk about manning, sir. I remember fewer and fewer men were standing after a couple of days at the CP. I was with Captain Morton. We were standing in the trenches, and I remember that we'll have to hop from fire position to fire position to give the Chinese impression there was many of us. Little did they know it was only 4 of us there. Finally, Captain Morton decided to we needed to move and make a run, and we decided to cross the river. And as we move in, this machine gun just start opening up, bullets flying over our heads. I remember just being cold, miserable, all wet. And then, finally, we found this American tank that I could hide behind it, and by the exhaust, give me some heat, and I changed my socks. And till today, that's what saved my feet from being amputated from frostbite. So, yeah.
50% strength sounds about right, sir. We were supposed to have 38 men in a platoon, 4 guns. We were down to 15 men tops. And you were right, sir, about the cold. I didn't know it at the time, but apparently it was the coldest winter on record in Korea, negative 47 degrees. Would you believe that even at that temperature, your feet still sweat? It's baffling to me. Some sort of flaw in the way we were created. But each man had no more than 2 pairs of socks, so you'd wear a pair for the day, and when you were done, you'd take them off and stuck them between your bare skin and your undershirt just to prevent them from freezing with the sweat they had collected, and you'd put on your new pair, new for the day. It got so cold that we were doing hourly rotations, even overnight, starting up each engine just to keep them running. We were afraid that if they went for more than an hour at that temperature, they would never start again. I know it at the time, but even at that temperature, there was a dense fog. It was so cold, you feel like any moisture that was in the air would just freeze and fall out, powder in front of your eyes, and snow on the ground. No. It was so dense that you couldn't see more than 10 feet ahead of you. And at that point, everything was a shadow. And as you progressed on your nightly patrols, searching for any stragglers or Chinese patrols that might have found your location, any shift in brush or gust of wind that rustled a tree, they all looked like Chinese soldiers. It was truly, truly a terrifying task.
You're right, the cold was really ferocious. I'm amazed that we didn't lose anyone to those freezing temperatures.
Sir, changing the subject, during those times, I found myself in charge of the half of the platoon being assigned to the Brits. And while we were assigned to the Brits, we were surprised how well these soldiers performed. And a couple of times while we were patrolling, the Brits coordinated, they do a good job in coordinating with the Red Dragon 4.2 mortars to get support, and it will draw the Chinese away from us. And what was amazing to me was that the 4.2 mortars, they were filled with white phosphorus, which it created this cloud to conceal our troops.
Yeah, I remember working with the actual Brits on one of the missions towards the end of my tour. We were holding defensive positions with them while we were ensuring that the 8th Army, the whole 8th Army at that, crossed the bridge on the Han River, knowing that Chinese was coming. After the Chinese got there, we hurried up and rushed across the bridge, knowing the engineers rigged the bridge with explosives. When I saw that explosion, it was spectacular.
We started talking about the Hanover Bridge. I remember being there. There was a flow of troops coming back to Seoul, and similar to that time frame, in January, I believe, the 5th Infantry troops, they decided to move, and they left the 2nd chemical mortars by themselves. So they found that they have to pull security on their mortars. And later on in the same month, I remember seeing just jets and airplanes just heading north in amazingly large numbers. And me and my platoon were just standing by for orders.
Yeah, in January, the unit got about 7 officers and 140 enlisted men. Once they got here, the unit was back at 70%. On February 11th, that's when I headed back to the States, and I was getting reassigned to a different unit.
Hey everybody, Lieutenant St. Clair here. Just wanted to talk really briefly about what it means to be a Red Dragon, or at least what it means to me. And it's actually pretty simple. Being a Red Dragon means working hard and finding unique training opportunities to better both myself and my team, and constantly pushing the envelope and finding the next big thing. And that's kind of what it means to be a Red Dragon, just pushing the envelope.
I'm a Red Dragon because I'm motivated and dedicated to accomplish the mission.
I'm Sergeant Franco, and what it means to be a Red Dragon to me is no matter what position you hold in the battalion or a company, no matter how small your position is or how big it is, working together as a team is what makes this unit run. And to me, that's what a Red Dragon is working as a team.
I'm proud to be a Red Dragon because of the history and lineage that the Red Dragon Battalion has.
Everybody, I'm Sergeant First Class Mendoza. What makes me a Red Dragon is being part of a family. You will think that Chemical Corps is small or big, but it's not. It's actually, you will run into that person or that soldier that you mentored years back, or that you grew up together as leaders. So that's what makes me a Red Dragon.